Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Hachoifer bar Rishus HaYochid. Somebody dug a bar into Rishus HaYochid. Upaschoi Rishus HaRabim. But it opens into Rishus HaRabim. Now, Rashi gives us some detail on what's going on over here. The Chol Shekain im Chafer Rishus HaRabim, Kol Shekain, if he dug the bar in Rishus HaRabim, Upaschoi Rishus HaRabim, and it opened up in Rishus HaRabim. So we're talking about where the actual hole is, and then we're talking about where the opening to the bar is. So if you went into Rishus HaRabim and you dug a bar, that's for sure going to be Chayav al bar. But the Mishnah is telling us that even if the bar is Rishus HaYochid, I guess it's down on an angle. Oh, thank you. I'm going to go. Thank you so much. Even if the opening is Rishus HaRabim, but the bar is Rishus HaYochid, there as well there'll be a chiyuv. Don't say, Dr. Rashi, Davka Chayfer Birshu say, Davka when he digs in his own rishus, the Havalei bar, the Islay Bailam. Don't say that the only type of bar that you're chayav for is a bar that has an owner. It's dug in Rishus HaYochid. Aval Chafer Rishus HaRabim Potter. But if you dig in Rishus HaRabim, it's Potter because it doesn't belong to you. The Atani Sefer we're going to see in a moment in the same Mishnah here. So according to Rashi, the point that the Mishnah is making is that the bar, whether it's Rishus HaRabim or it's Rishus HaYochid, will still be chayiv because of bar. Okay, let's have a look at the Tosfos, because Tosfos summarizes the whole Mishnah. Hachayfer bar b'shus hayochid u'pischa l'shus harabim. Klal the milsa b'cholach shemaitza. This is the main rule of thumb that the Mishnah is trying to teach us, and that is bar basar pischa yaslina. The most important thing to focus on is not where the actual hole is, rather it's where the opening is. The opening is going to determine the status of whether or not you're chayav for this bar or not. The nechshav bar ki'ilu hu b'makom sha'pesach shom. What we focus on is where the opening to the bar is. That's where the danger is. Exactly how it's dug after that below the surface is not the focus of what we're going to determine will make it a chiyuv or not. So chayver bar b'shus hayochid upaschay l'rishus harabim. So the opening is Rishus HaRabim. What if it was in Rishus HaRabim, but it opened into Rishus HaYochid? So why would there be a chiyuv there? So let's see Rashi. Rishus HaRabim upaschay l'rishus hayochid tavalei bar b'shus hayochid. It would be a bar b'shus hayochid, but then vehifka rishusai. You have to say that after he opened up this opening, you have to say that he was mafker the land around it. Because if he wasn't mafker the land around it, why would I be mechuyev if you fell into my bar? If he was mafker the land around it, then he cannot say ma boyis pershusi. What are you doing in my rishus? I'm not going to pay because you fell into my bar. Who asked you to come into my rishus in the first place? But here it's speaking where he was mafker the land around the hole. So even though he's retaining the opening to himself, but the land right around it is hefker. So everybody had a right to be there. And through that opening, which was originally in Rishus HaYochid, that is now surrounded with Rishus HaRabim because he was mafker, the victim fell in there. So there we say chayiv, the kasavar chayiv the bar is bein Rishus HaRabim, bein Rishus HaYochid, ubevat sheyafki Rishus. The chayiv for a bar, it doesn't matter if the bar is opening in Rishus HaYochid or in Rishus HaRabim. As long as you're mafker it later, so you dig the bar, and then you're mafker it, so people have access to it, that will be enough to create a chiyuv. Okay, let's go to the next case. What about Rishus HaYochid ufaschad l'shus hayochid acher? It was in one Rishus, the opening is in one Rishus HaYochid, and the bar is in a different Rishus HaYochid. So you build it right along the edge between two property owners. Chayiv is going to be chayiv. Now, what I just said is not factually correct, because I said it was on the border in between two different properties. That's not going to be correct, but I'm going to start with that. We'll read Rashi and then we'll read Tosfos. Even though there's nothing here that's Rishus HaRabim. It's either in Reuven's Rishus or in Shimon's Rishus. Chayiv, the person with the opening is still Chayiv. Ubilvad im hifker Rishusai, as long as he was mafkir Rishus, oisah shapia bar l'taycha. So this is a little bit of an interesting word. If we're talking about two neighbors, shouldn't it say ubilvad im hifker Rishusai oisai, the person who the pia bar is l'taycha? It doesn't say that. It says oisah, the karka, the pia bar l'taycha. So from this oisah of Rashi, Tosfos actually makes a diuk. And let's have a look at Tosfos. Rishus hayachid u'paschal rishus hayachid acher. Pirush hakodesh shehifker rishusoi oisa. Which rishus? He had two properties. Which property was this one owner of both properties? Mafker oisa shapia bar l'saycha. The property that the opening, the access to the boards. Zok Tosfos ein nir shiratz aloymar shepaschoi rishus hayachid she'odam acher. It doesn't mean that it's on the border in between two properties, like I said earlier. And the person who has the opening, Rashi shouldn't have used the word oisa b'lashon nekeva. Rather, elamashma from Rashi's wording, everything was in his rishus. The only difficulty with that is the Mishnah says, if the bar is in one rishus, what do you mean acher? It's all his, and that's why Tosfos points out for lashon acher einam yushuv l'firuzeh. Okay. Frek Tosfos, I don't understand. If it's one rishus, vein lahakshois amay itzrich lemisni b'shus hayachid upaschal rishus acher. What are we learning from it? Havel lemeimer hachayver bar b'shus hayachid v'suloi. What? That's really all it is. The agav achrini nakatach. You're just trying to use a case that sounds parallel to the earlier cases, but about this is just a simple bar b'shus hayachid. Upirish lanu shabar v'pesach hakol loisa b'shus. That's Rashi's pshat. Rima farish b'shus hayachid u'pasl b'shus hayachid acher hainu shechafar bar b'shus atzmoi. He dug a bar in his rishus u'paschay l'shus chaverai, and he made that the access is right by the Rishus Chaverai. The Itzrich. And what is the Chiddush? The Leitema Paschai Rishus HaRabim Hu Dechayiv D'Shchichi Rabim Umaski. Don't say Dafka if it's right near Rishus HaRabim. Where someone from Rishus HaRabim could fall into it, that's where there's a Chiyav. Ava Rishus HaYachid. If it's just near my neighbor's field, not near the Rishus HaRabim, the Lekal Amecha Shel Nezek Yechidi, where the concern is only that one person, my neighbor might fall in. But we don't have to worry about grand public. Potter, you would have thought that it would be Potter. Chumash Malon, that it's Chayiv. Ulufi Pirish Ri Kasha. The only problem is, according to the Ri, is Lama Hu Chayiv in this case, Baal Choter Im Nafel Shoyrei Labar. Why would he be Chayiv for the nezek of the Balchoter if Balchoter Shor fell into the bar? Kivon Shachayfer Mishalom Niskei Choter. If I open up a hole into your Choter, then I damage your Choter. So I got to pay you for that. So if I'm paying you because I dug a hole, now it's your responsibility to fill it because I paid you to fix it. So that's Tosfos is difficult. Okay, Gavaltik. Another very important point is the earlier Tosfos, where we talked about digging a bar in Rishus HaRabim, but it opened up to Rishus HaYachid. So Pirish B'Kuntres, the way we learned in Rashi was v'hifke Rishusah. If it opens up into Rishus HaYachid, why is there a chiyuv? So Rashi had to say after he dug it, then he was mafkir the land right around the bar, so now the public has access to following into the bar. However, the Tosfos, you didn't need such a complicated case. What if he dug a bar in his rishus, but it's right up against the border? So since someone could walk right up to it in Rishus HaRabim, he could fall in, and it would also be chayiv. Ella, why did Rashi want to say it's speaking hifker rishusai? If it says the bar is Rishus HaRabim that opens up into Rishus HaYachid, it's not mashma that opened up right up along the border of the Rishus HaRabim. It's mashma it's deeper into his field. Since it's deeper into his field, he would have had to be mafker enough land that would give the public ability to get right up to the bar. Okay, those are the details of the Mishnah. Zok the Heilige Gemara. Tan Rabbanan. Hachayver bar b'shus hayochid upischai l'rshus harabim. Chayiv the halach is you're going to be chayiv, and this is a classic case. V'zeu bar ha'amr b'Torah divrei Rabbi Shmuel. This is the classic case of bar. The Gemara is going to explain what does it mean. This is the classic case of bar. I'm sorry.
Classic case.
You would think the classic case would be everything in Rishus Harabim. Rabbi Kiva Aimer hifker reshusai v'la hifker boyrei. If you were mafker your reshus, but not the bar, which means it's not Rishus Harabim, it's a personally owned bar. Zeu bar amar b'Torah. So we have a machlokes over here, whether or not the bar is belonging to you or not. In other words, you have to be mafker the bar, and then you're chayiv, or even if you're not mafker the bar, even if you retain ownership. So Zok the Gemara, let's drill down to understand precisely what the machlokes is between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. We're going to have two versions of what this machlokes is about, and it's going to have a big nafkamina. So let's have a look. Amar Rabba, bebar b'shus harabim. If a bar is dug in Rishus Harabim, everything's in Rishus Harabim, as Dovi just mentioned. Kula amaloi pligi de machai. That is the textbook case of a chiv bar. My time, Amar Kred, a pasuk says, "Ki yiftach v'chiyichre." It says, if someone opens up a bar, he uncovers a bar. V'chiyichre, if he digs a bar. Imal psicha chayiv. If you're chayiv just for uncovering a bar that you didn't dig, al kriya like halshagein. Surely, if you dig a bar from scratch, you should be chayiv. So why does the Torah have to speak out that you're chayiv for digging? Ela shall iske psicha al iske kriya ba'alai. The chiyuv for a bar is not because you own the property. It's not because you have it in your property. It's because you dug it. You made it. So therefore, it's even if everything only occurred in Rishus Harabim, the chiyuv is because you dug this bar, and that applies perfectly in Rishus Harabim. So everybody agrees that the textbook case of bar is the case of bar b'Rishus Harabim. Let's see Rashi on that. Loi pligi de mechayiv. Kulam loi pligi de mechayiv. Everybody agrees B'Rishus Harabim Yechayiv. Rabbi Kiva moidel Rabbi Shmuel. And Rabbi Kiva would agree to Rabbi Shmuel with bar b'Rishus Harabim that avada is a chiyuv. The Amar b'Torah. Everybody would agree that that's the bar that the Torah was talking about, a bar b'Rishus Harabim. Avol Rabbi Shmuel loi moidel Rabbi Kiva with bar b'Rishus. Rabbi Shmuel disputes Rabbi Kiva, who holds that if the bar is in your rishus, you can be chayiv for the bar. Rabbi Shmuel says no. If you own it, you will not be chayiv. Bar is only Rishus Harabim. The kasavar ki afkarana lach rishusi lav lechiyuve ano bezeka afkarte. Rabbi Shmuel is going to hold, even if I was mafker the bar, right? Rabbi Shmuel doesn't agree to Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says that you're chayiv for a bar that's in your rishus, and why am I liable? Because I was mafker the land around it. I retained the ownership of the bar. I was mafker the land around it. That's why I'm liable. Rabbi Shmuel says it doesn't make sense that if you were mafker the land around it, you should be liable. Because why would somebody donate something to the Rishus Harabim to his detriment? So he'll say, yes, I donated the land around it, but not that you should damage yourself. I never wanted to relinquish that right to it. So if you're going to be damaging yourself, I don't want you in my property. I'm letting you in my property, there's not going to be damage. So a person, when he's mafker the land, he's saying, I would never be mafker it, that I should be liable for the damages. So that's why, even though technically he was mafker the land around it, it will not be mechay. Zok to Gemara v'ad. Imal Pesach min back in Rashi. Imal Pesach shechafru achar v'chiseyu ubaza v'gileyu. If merely opening up a bar that somebody else dug, you just took the cover off, you're chayiv. Surely you're chayiv for kriya. So the Gemara says no. The pasuk is trying to tell you where the chiyuv comes from in the bar b'Rishus Harabim. It comes from your actions. He has no ownership in it. It's Rishus Harabim. Elisha Karo either dug it, or he uncovered it. The Hainu Rishus Harabim she'eina karka shalom. So this shot, according to Rabbah, everybody agrees a bar b'Rishus Harabim is chayiv. That's what the Torah is talking about. The machlokes is if a bar b'Rishus Hayochid is going to be chayiv. Like nechel go ela bebar b'Rishusai, a bar that's in your rishus. Rabbi Kiva savar bar b'Rishusai nami chayiv. If the bar is in your rishus, you will be chayiv anyways. Dichsiv bal habar. The pasuk says, bal habar yishalim kesef yoshev l'balav shmamesh yaloi. So what do you mean Baal Habar? Obviously, it's also referring to somebody who owns a bar. The bar is Isle Bailim Ka'amar. Ka'amar Achman. Rabbi Shmuel Savar Baal Hatakala. You know who pays the Baal Hatakala? What does that mean? So Rashi La'olam B'Shus HaRabbim. Rabbi Shmuel says you're only chayav for a bar that's in B'Shus HaRabbim. Ava B'Shus Soy, if the bar is in your Rishus, Af Al Pi Shehifker, even though you're a mafkarit, potter, you're going to be potter, kedeprecious, like Rashi said earlier, I'm not being mafkarit to get myself a liability. Why did it say you're only mafkarit land around the bar, not the bar? Then even Rabbi Shmuel would agree. Rabbi Shmuel only disagrees if you retain ownership of the bar. There, it won't be the chi of a bar, and Rabbi Kiva holds that there is a chi of bar even though you own the bar. Ella mai zehu bar ha'omer b'torah de'kamer Rabbi Kiva. So then, what does it mean? Zehu habar according to Rabbi Kiva, and Rashi explains what's the question. Bishlam is zehu Rabbi Shmuel is lamutin de Rabbi Kiva. Why does we say zehu bar? This is the bar to tell you dafka bar b'shus harabim and not as a bar b'shus yachid. But according to Rabbi Kiva, we're both a bar b'shus harabim and a bar b'shus yachid chayiv. What do you mean dafka this? What it means is when the Torah talked about paying liability for a damage done by your bar, there the Torah is talking about a bar b'shus hayachid, as we just said. It says balabar yishalem kaseh. So when the Torah is referring to the tashlumin, the bar, there's many different types of bars, but the example that the Torah uses, it talks about the chiv to pay, is a bar b'shus hayachid. So Rashi look tashlumin bar disle bailim nemar etzel tashlumin k'dichsev balabar yishalem ubar b'shus harabim nemar etzel hanazakin. When the Torah introduces the case of what happened, that's talking about a bar b'shus harabim. It says chiyiftech or chiyikra, which means you're chayiv for digging it, not because you own it. So there's two bars discussed. The bar discussed like Rabbi Tashlumin is the bar b'shus hayachid. V'achikam Rabbi Kiva. Amai patarte bebar b'shusay. You, Rabbi Shmuel, why would you hold that a bar b'shusay is potter? V'leizeu bar amar b'torah tashlumin. The Torah is speaking about that bar when the Torah talks about the liability. Zeu bar shepasach by akasuf tchilah tashlumin. What time is the time to start? I got to get a drink of water. My mouth is very dry. I'll take one. Yeah, seltzer. My mouth irritated.
Do this intermittent fasting diet.
I've been doing it for a while.
No, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, it's working. It's working. I mean, this is the first one I ever, first time since like September. I've had some deep.
Sorry, but everybody.
I don't usually eat more than one time. Like one walk.
Well, that late?
I
think it's like about 11.
I stopped eating. I don't eat past 8:30 at night. I eat in the morning. I 12 years early, so every 60 hours. The day it's only 11 hours. It's fast. You're sleeping for 5-6 hours during that time.
Okay, so far we have Rabbi Shita, where everybody agrees that a bar b'shus harabim is chayiv. Rabbi Kiva adds to the mix a bar b'shus hayachid is also chayiv. Rabbi Shmuel disagrees. Rabbi Yosy Amar no. The bar b'shus hayachid kula amalai pligi de mechayiv. Sai Rabbi Shmuel and Sai Rabbi Kiva hold that a bar b'shus hayachid you're going to be chayiv. Now let me just stop for a second. In Rabbi Shmuel holds only a bar b'shus harabim is chayiv. Rabbi Kiva holds Sai b'shus harabim is chayiv b'shus hayachid is chayiv. Our Mishnah is talking about both times. So our Mishnah, according to Rabbi, would go according to Rabbi Kiva. We're both a bar b'shus hayachid as well as a bar b'shus harabim is chayiv. Rabbi Yosef has the opposite view. He says the bar b'shus hayachid kulam alay pligi de mechayiv. Everybody agrees that a bar b'shus hayachid is chayiv. My timer, because Baal Habar Amar Rachmana, but bar is lebayla maskina. When the Torah is mechayiv, the owner of a bar that pay damages, it's clearly talking about a Baal Habar, someone who has ownership of it. So therefore, everybody agrees that a bar b'shus hayachid you're chayiv. Keep leaky. You know what the machlokes Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel is? If a bar b'shus harabim is also going to be mechuyev, Keep believing bar b'shus harabim. Rabbi Shmuel savar bar b'shus harabim nami chayiv. Why? Because it says ki yichtach and ki yichre, and we have the same story as we said a moment ago. You don't need to own a bar to be mechuyev. Just digging it is going to create a liability. Therefore, Rabbi Shmuel will agree with our Mishnah, because Rabbi Shmuel now who says that Tzaya bar b'shus hayachid and Tzaya bar b'shus harabim is chayiv. Rabbi Kiva says no, only a bar b'shus hayachid is chayiv, a bar b'shus harabim is not chayiv, and therefore Rabbi Kiva would disagree with our Mishnah. And he says from Kiyikra and Kiyiftach, you don't learn that even a bar b'shus harabim is chayiv, because Hana mitzvah shrichi. You need the pasuk of Chiyich and Chiyiftach to teach you something else, not that you're chayiv for digging a bar in Rishus Harabim. What do you need it for? Because of Achron Chiyiftach, if the Torah said, if you open up a bar, meaning it's an existing bar already, have me the Pesach who desagi lebekisoi. I would have thought that if you never dug the bar, you only uncovered it. I would have thought that in that case, your shmira, your mitigation, it's adequate for you merely to cover it. But kaira, if you actually dug a bar and you covered it and someone fell into it, you would still be chayiv. I would have thought you have to fill it in completely in order. It's like covering a pool versus filling in the pool. If you dug the bar, it's incumbent upon you to fill it up. Because of Chwana Kiyichra, and if it was a Kiyichra, have a mina kriyahu the boy kisui. Maybe only if I dug it do I have to cover it. You shouldn't do it with Maisa, because I was the one who made the hole. But what if I never dug the hole? I just uncovered it. Maybe I'm not even liable to cover it. But it's not telling you that a bar b'shus harabim is chayiv. Now that Rabbi Shmuel that applies Chai b'shus harabim and Chai b'shus hayachid. So what does Rabbi Shmuel mean to say zehu bar amar b'torah? So the Gemara zehu bar shepasach boy akasav tchila l'nezikin. When the Torah introduces the story about bar, the Torah is talking about this bar b'shus harabim, and now Rabbi Shmuel telling Rabbi Kiva, you should agree to me that a bar b'shus harabim is chayiv as well, because that is the bar that the Torah starts off the parsha, introduces the parsha of bar with. Okay, so now that we have our two mahalchim, just to review, we'll see how the different prices agree with them or not. So we have two mahalchim. According to Rabbah, everybody agrees that a bar b'shus harabim is chayiv. Rabbi Kiva says a bar b'shus hayachid is also chayiv. And according to Rabbi Yosef, everybody agrees that a bar b'shus hayachid is chayiv, and it's Rabbi Shmuel who says that a bar b'shus harabim is also chayiv. Meisvei, hachayfer bar b'shus harabim, you dug a bar b'shus harabim, upaschay l'shus hayachid, and it opened up into Rishus hayachid, potter you'll be potter. The afal pi she'enu rishai lasas came. So let's stop a second. This is telling me that a bar b'shus hayachid is potter. This is telling me that a bar b'shus hayachid is potter. Who will this be consistent with, that a bar b'shus hayachid is potter? It's not consistent with anyone in Rabbi Yosef, because according to Rabbi Yosef, everybody holds a bar b'shus hayachid is chayiv. But it might be going, according to Rabbi's version, it might be consistent with Rabbi Shmuel. So let's have a look. Even though you're not allowed to dig a bar, and basically your opening is Rishus hayachid, but I guess you're digging down on an angle, so the hollow of the bar is like a cave going under the Rishus harabim. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to dig tunnels. What Hamas does, this is mamish what the Gemara is talking about. What Hamas does, digging tunnels is not allowed. You're not allowed to dig under the Rishus harabim. Hachayfer boyros are a round hole that goes straight down. Shichin are Rashi actually explains them one by one. Let's have a look. Shichin are, I believe, what are they again?
Pits, ditches, and vaults.
Ditches, okay. We're going to.
No, boros are pits. Shichim are ditches.
Maris is like a ditch with a cover over it.
It's a vault.
It's a vault, okay, but it means it has a cover. Rashi on Amud Beis is going to explain each of these items one by one. There's going to be like 6 different variations. Rishus hayachid, u'pas chay l'rishus harabim, and it opened up into Rishus harabim. Chayiv, you're going to be chayiv. V'achayver boros b'rishus hayachid hasmucha l'rishus harabim Kigoyin elu, like those people, hachoifim lu'ushim, who build trenches to put the foundation of their homes, and they build their homes right up to the property line. It's not like here in Ontario where you have to set back your house from the property line. You're building right on the property line, and you're building a ditch. Sorry?
I think Mati had this problem with his neighbor.
The loch is potter. Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda mechayiv. Rabbi Yehuda is mechayiv. Ad sheyasa mechitza asara. You'd have to build a wall. Or you have to set it back a little bit from the property line. Zok to Gemara, time of the Lu'ushin. The reason why it says that if you build this trench right up, doesn't say any trench, it says the only Lu'ushin, a Lu'ushin trench is potter. You know why? Because Lu'ushin is the derech to make. Everybody builds their walls that way, so that's the normal thing to do. That's why, even though you built the trench right up against the Rosh Hashanah, that's why you're potter. Halav Lu'ushin chayiv. So that means here it's saying that a bar b'shus hayachid is chayiv. But the very first clause of the brisa says chayfer bar b'shus hayachid is going to be potter. I'm sorry, I have to go back a little bit more. Chayfer bar b'shus hayachid is potter. So here it says potter, but here it says it will be chayiv. It's only because it was lu'ushin that you're potter, because you're not deviating from the normal. Zok Gemara Hamani. So who is going to be the author of this brisa? Bishleim Rabba. According to Rabba, you can say Reisha is Rabbi Shmuel, who holds Rabbi Shmuel, who holds that a bar b'shus harabim is chayiv, a bar b'shus yachid is potter, right? And that will fit in why the Reisha said it's potter b'shus yachid. The sefer that says the bar b'shus yachid is chayiv could go according to Rabbi Kiva, because there is a machlekes whether or not a bar b'shus yachid is chayiv or not, according to Rabba. El Rabbi Yosef, where everybody agrees that a bar b'shus yachid is going to be chayiv, b'shleim sefer divrei hakoil. El Reisha mani, who holds that a bar b'shus yachid is potter? Loy Rabbi Yishmael, v'loy Rabbi Kiva. Okay, 1 second. I have 3 minutes left. I only have one more cup of water. I got to irrigate myself. I apologize. I'm going to be drinking a lot of seltzer here, so it might affect the audio. But this is cold. Okay, so we're at a quandary over here, because according to Rabbi Yosef, where everybody agrees that a bar b'shus hayachid is chayiv, who is going to be the author of the Reisha of this Mishnah, of this brisa, who holds that bar b'shus hayachid is potter? Mani lo Rabbi Shmuel v'lo Rabbi Kiva. Amalach Rabbi Yosef, I have a simple pshat in this brisa. Kula divrei hakoili. Everything's according to everybody. In other words, that a bar b'shus hayachid is chayiv. Oy bazoi, why is it potter? The teretz is v'reisha shalei hifker lo yishus v'lo boyrei. We said the only time a bar b'shus hayachid is chayiv is only because you were marking the property all around it, and now people have access to it. But the Reisha is speaking where nobody had access to it. Since nobody has access to it, there's no liability. Or Marvashi, Hashadu Kim to Rabbi Yosef l'divrei hakoil. Now that you have a better solution for Rabbi Yosef than you even have for Rabbah, because who wants to say a Reisha is going with the Reisha according to one Tana and the Sefer according to another Tana? It's better to have everything going according to everybody. So Rabbi Yosef has a phenomenal solution. He is literally a silver bullet. So Oibazoi, let's try using a similar svara according to Rabbah to say that it's going according to everybody. Let's not say that the Reisha is Rabbi Kiva and the Reisha is Rabbi Shmuel and the Sefer is Rabbi Kiva. Let's not say that. Rather, Midiresh Rabbi Shmuel, say Fanami Rabbi Shmuel. You're going to ask me if the Sefer is Rabbi Shmuel, why are you chayiv for the bar b'shus hayachid? Rabbi Shmuel also bar b'shus hayachid is potter. The time of the Lu'ushin, halav Lu'ushin chayiv, you know why? There will be a chayiv if it wasn't Lu'ushin. If it was a regular bar, it's going to arbach Rosh Hashanah. And speaking where you spread the trench into the Rosh Hashanah. So you're actually digging in Rosh Hashanah now. That's already a bar Rosh Hashanah. Even Rabbi Shmuel would agree it's chayiv. So now let's try another kasha. Meisvei, hachayver bar Rosh Hashanah u'paschal Rosh Hashanah. Someone opened up a bar into Rishus Yachid and then opens up into Rishus Rabbim, Chayiv. Rishus Yachid Asmucha Rishus Rabbim. What if it's Rishus Yachid, but it's right abutting Rishus Rabbim? Potter. Zoktamar Bishlam al Rabba. Bishlam according to Rabba. Kula Rabbi Shmuel. It's going according to Rabbi Shmuel, who hold that a bar Rishus Yachid is going to be Potter. It fits in very, very beautifully. Elul Rabbi Yosef. Bishlam Reisha. The Reisha I can say is going according to Rabbi Shmuel, who holds that a bar Rishus Rabbim is also chayiv. But El Seifa Mani, Loy Rabbi Shmuel, V'loy Rabbi Kiva. What does the Seifa say? The Seifa says, Potter. How do you understand that? It doesn't fit in according to Rabbi Shmuel, because he holds that a bar Rishus Yachid is chayiv, and it won't fit in according to Rabbi Kiva, because he also holds the bar Rishus Yachid is chayiv. Amar Lach, you know what Rabbi Yosef could say? The Chayfer L'Ushin. You know why it was Potter by Rishus Yachid or Samuch Rishus Rabbim? It's speaking about a case of L'Ushin. L'Ushin is the derech, as we looked in the last brisa. The Divrei HaKoil would agree that there won't be a chiyuv. Even though it's technically a bar Rishus Yachid, but since this is the norm for everyone to build their houses that way, there's not a chiyuv bar. Taner Rabbanan. Chafar, he dug, upasach, or he uncovered, umasar l'Rabbim, and then he gave it over to the public. So he did this in his own rishus, and then he turned it over. He was mafker the area around the bar. So the halacha is potter. What about chafar upasach v'loy masar l'Rabbim? What if you dug and you opened up and you didn't give it over to the public? Chayiv. This sounds very much that like a bar b'shus hayochid is chayiv, and a bar b'shus Rabbim is not chayiv. That's what this sounds like. So this sounds like Rabbi Kiva according to Rabbi Yosef. V'chein min hagay shel Nechunya chofer bayris shichin amoritz. Nechunya was a big tzaddik. He wanted that when the Yidden would come to the Oila Regel, they would have plenty of reservoirs of water along the way for their animals and for themselves to drink from, to facilitate, to make it easier for the people coming to the Oila Regel. He was a big tzaddik. So he used to dig bayris shichin amoritz. So you chofer u'poseich amoisel Rabbim. What he would do is he would be mafker them. So this way he's not going to be chayav al tzbor, because he must have held that you also have to belong, you have to own it like Rabbi Kiva. When the Chacham heard what Nechunya did, they said, Kayim zeh halachazu. Nechunya was makayim this halacha. Frag the Gemara, halachazu v'suloi. You think Nechunya only was makayim one halacha? So the Gemara, ela af halachazu. Even this halacha he was mekayim. I assume he was mekayim because he did everything that would be consistent with the laws of bar. So he didn't build a bar that would be a bar that there's a chiv for mazakan, but he did create bars to facilitate people drinking. Taner Rabbanan. Ma'aseh bebita shel Nechunya chayfer shichin shenafla lebar gadol. She fell into a big bar and she was drowning. Bo v'haidiu es Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. They went to Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. I guess he was the big rebbe. Shari Shani, the first time they came to him, she still wasn't underwater for long enough that we would assume that she died. So Amalem Shalom said, don't worry about her, she's going to be just fine. Shniya, the second time again, Amalem Shalom. Shlish is, at that point, it would have been impossible for her to still be alive if she was still in the water. So what did he say? Amalem, also don't worry, I know she was already escaped, she got out of the water. And that's what happened. So they were blown away. So they asked her, Amrla, they asked her, Mi halach, who pulled you out of the water? Who rescued you? Amrla, she told them, Zachar shal rechelin nizdamenli, a ram. I actually bumped into a ram. V'zachar nechad ben higoy, and there was a old man that was leading the ram. And the ram saved me. Amrla, so they told her, Nechunya ben Akana, wow, your mama shabal moifis. You said she saved, and boom. I'm sorry, Chanina Doisa. It's a total of Chanina Doisa. You're a mamsher bal movish. You're a rebbe. Amaloi noviyata. You're a novi. Amalam hakmish kachaynik. Like novi anoichi. Like ben novi anoichi. I'm a regular guy. Elakacha marti. What I said to myself was, Dover she'oisoi tzadik mitzdayer boy. Something that this tzaddik would work hard and struggle to help people with. Yikoshu b'zayroi. That to take him out. I couldn't believe that he would be punished and he would have a tragedy from the very thing that was his chus. That didn't make sense. There's a famous story at the Satmar Rebbe that A Yid came into him, a guy who struggled his whole life. He struggled to make parnasa, and he came to the Rebbe. Outside the Rebbe, the Oisher of the community, Moshe Gross, wants to become my partner. Give me a bracha. This is going to be an opportunity of a lifetime. The Rebbe said, "Don't do it." He said, "Rebbe, how could you not forgive me? My whole life I struggled. Now I'm going to be able to get ahead in life, and you're not going to let me, Rebbe? How could you do this to me?" He says, "You're not doing it." So of course he didn't do it, and then a couple of days later, this rich guy was found out to be totally penniless, and there was nothing to him. So this guy runs back to the Rebbe and says, Rebbe, you're about Moifus. How did you know he had no money? So you hear the story. So the Rebbe said, it's very, very simple. This guy was a very wealthy guy. So every week he would come to me and say, Rebbe, let me show you my new Cadillac. Rebbe, you know where I was in Florida? You should see my apartment. Rebbe, I just redecorated my house. Come. Rebbe, check this out. Last time this guy came to me, he says, Rebbe, Mashiach darfst come. If this guy wants Mashiach, I know it's bad news. Zog to Gemara weiter. Toysvis asks, it so happens to be that his son died of thirst. So Toysvis says, well, those ask, what's the kasha? How do you know? How could you tell me that I know she would be saved? His son died of thirst. So the Marsha asks on Toysvis, what type of kasha is that? Who said his son died of thirst at that time? At that time, his son didn't die of thirst yet. So now he said it. But Tosh says, anyway, dying of thirst is not mamish from the bar. Here she was literally drowning in the bar that he would have done. The Zok to Gemara, Amar Bach Aval Pikin Meis B'noi B'Tzamash, and Amar Usavivav Nisara Ma'oid, or Nishara Ma'oid. I'm not sure how it's printed in the pasuk, but Nisara we darshan that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is makbid on tzaddikim kechut hasayra. Let me see what it says. Nisara, it's Nisara, like a sar, like a chut hasayra. So Hashem is medactic and punishes tzaddikim because he wants to.
I don't think they're truly true.
Malamet HaKadosh Baruch Hu medactic im seviva v'afilu v'chod hasayra. From the Chunyam Hamhacha, you have another pasuk that says that Kadosh Baruch Hu is very strict with tzaddikim. It says Keil Naris Hashem is praised b'soid kedoshim rabba v'noira, and he's feared al kol seviva, meaning everybody around him there's fear. Why? Because of the mishpatim of Hashem that you have to stick to. Zog to Gemara weiter. Anyone who says, "Nah, I'm not going to listen to the mitzvahs and do it bears," Hashem is a rachamim. He'll have rachmanos on me. It's going to be okay. Such a person, Yivasru Chayav, will be mevater on his life. His life won't mean anything. Shenemar Atzur Tamim Pa'alai. Kichol Derach of Mishpat. Rebbeinu Shalom is Mishpat. Don't think you can just get a free pass. Amar Rab Chana v'Tem Rab Shmuel ben Nachmani. Ma'adich Sev, it says in the pasuk. Oirech Erech Apayim. It doesn't say Lashon Rabim. It doesn't say Lashon Yochid of Erech Af. It says Erech Apayim, meaning Hashem stretches out His judgment both for tzaddikim and rishoyim. The two afs for tzaddikim mishalom schar toiv l'alter. Hashem doesn't pay them right away. Hashem wants to retain their schar for a long time. Why? So they'll have schar nadav haba. Rishoyim, Hashem's Erech Apayim because He wants to stretch it out because He wants to punish them in olam haba as well. Tana Rabbanan. A person shouldn't throw stones from his rishus into the rishus harabim. He's not allowed to. There's also a question of four. You can't dump your garbage into rishus harabim. And here's a fascinating story. And the Chassan told him, "Amalei Reka, fool what you are. Think about this. What he was doing is he was taking garbage from his property, throwing it to the public, which is not his property. And this chassid tells him, "Why are you throwing rocks from an area that's not your property into your property? That doesn't make sense." This guy is saying, "You idiot! You're speaking nonsense." Sure enough, the wheels turned, and now he was forced to sell his field. So now it's not his field anymore. And he was walking down the street, the same street that he threw the rocks in. And he tripped and hurt himself on those very rocks that he threw there. Omar, he said, Yafa Omar li Chassid. Now it makes sense. He was referring to the future, where I was taking rocks from a property that's not mine anymore and throwing it in my way as an obstacle for myself. Now I understand what the man was saying. If someone digs a bar b'shus harabim, a shor chamor falls in, he's chayiv. That's a classic case of bar. Echad a chayfer bar, and now we're going to get to the different styles. Shiach, if he dug a shiach, or if he dug a ma'ara. So Rashi says bar is ogolhu, bar is a round hole. Shiach is a rucha uktsara. It's a ditch, like Victor said. It's long and thin. Ma'ara is the third case. It's ma'ara. We live in a cave. Mirubas. It's a square hole, so it's not narrow. It's a square, but umechusa bekirei. But it has a cover on. Elishiyesh lapeh. It has an opening, I guess, on the side. There's an opening in the cover, so you can get out. Charitzin are rechavin umeraboyim. They're also a big square reservoir, but the Eina Makurin, they don't have a cover. They're fully open, and the Eatin are Ktsarim Milamata Rechavim Milamayla. It's the floor area is smaller than the upper area, so the walls are on an incline. Okay, Chayiv. All of these things fall under the category of bar to be Mechayiv somebody. Imkein Lama Nemar bar. So why does it say bar in the Torah? Ma bar sheyesh boy kedei lahamis. The same way a bar that's only chayiv if it kills an animal, if it has enough depth to kill an animal, which is asar tefachim. Afkol sheyesh boy kedei lahamis asar tefachim. So to all these other types of holes, they're only going to be mechayiv the owner if an animal dies in it, if it was 10 tefachim deep. But if the bar was not deep enough to cause the death and the animal died anyway, we don't blame it on the bar. The owner will be potter. But from huzak boy, but if an animal got injured, because that is the norm for an animal to get injured in a bar that's not as deep as 10 tefachim, chayiv, then the owner will be chayiv. Amarav, bar shechayiv alavatar lahevloi v'loy lechabot. Do you know why you're chayiv? It's not because you fell, the animal fell into the bar and got banged at the bottom. The floor at the bottom of the bar doesn't belong to me. It's karkoilim. The chayiv is because in a bar the air isn't good, and the animal breathing that bad air, that's what killed the animal. Tosfos says if that's the case, it's only relevant if the animal falls in face first. If he falls in face up, then there won't be so much hevel. Alma kasover chavota karkoilim the maskle. You see that Rav holds there's no chayiv because of the sudden stop at the ground, because that's not the owner of the bar, that's the land. Avada, both are factors for which a person would be liable. And if you're going to tell me that maybe it's not the hevel that the Torah is mechayiv you for, the Torah is only mechayiv you because you smashed at the bottom of the bar, I'll prove that wrong. Because the Torah bar, the Torah says any bar. The Torah doesn't say dafka bar that has a hard bottom. The Torah says every bar. Even if you have padding at the bottom of the bar, where the animal will fall in and not get banged up, if the animal dies, the Torah still says you're chayiv, because the Torah doesn't make an exclusion. The chiyuchish bar that doesn't have padding, any type of bar. So it must be that the hevel will kill as well. My beinayu, what's the difference between these two shittas? And the difference is if there's only chavata and no hevel. You built a little hill in Rishus Harabim that's 10 tefachim high, and then the animal fell off of it. So there you have only chavata, but you don't have hevel. L'Rav agoy v'loy mechayiv, because there's no hevel involved. L'Shmuel agoy v'nami mechayiv. It's talking about my time of the Rav. What is the story of Rav? The Omar Kra. Rav says there's no chavata, only hevel. It says v'nofal ad sheyipol derech nefila. How do I know that it's hevel? Because it's the pasuk says only if you fall face first. That's when you'll suffer for hevel. But if you fall backwards, you're open to the upstate, you're open to the air, then there is no kabbalah. There is no damage. You'd still get banged up. So you see, if you balt, the chiyuv is only if it fell face first, you have a right that it's the hevel. It's only the hevel that you're chayiv. Ulu Shmuel, v'nafal kol mashva. No, it means anyway you fell. Now we learned.
It's face down.
Because I guess Rav assumes that whenever the Torah says something, it means there. I'm assuming so. So now we learned. Imkain laman amar bar. The Mishnah says, why does it say bar? And we learn from there. Ma bar sheish b'kedei lahamas asar tvachim. Afkol sheish b'kedei lahamas asar tvachim. Pegam bishlam l'shmuel. Afkol asuya goiva. What extra is the Mishnah teaching us? It says bar to tell you afkol any other thing if it's 10 tvachim. What's any other thing? It can't be any of the items that are listed in the Mishnah because they're listed already. It must be referring to something that's not listed in the Mishnah. That would be if it fell off a platform. Elul Rav, where it's only in a bar, Afkal Asuyamai. What is it coming to include? The Mishnah already listed off every possibility of any type of hole. So Gemara Lasuya Charitin Unitin. In fact, Gemara Charitin Unitin Be'edikatanilu. But it says that before the Mishnah. So Gemara Tani V'Adim Afarish. It says all these things, and then how do I know it? I know it because Ma Bar Afkal. So Gemara V'Anikulu Dekatani Lamli. Why do we need the Mishnah to list off every type of bar? Why couldn't we have figured it out on our own? Tricha, the Tana bar, if it only says bar, which is a nice round hole, Havamina bar Asara who the Isbehevla, a bar with 10 Fachim deep has Hevel, we should be cut in the Karicha. It's round, it's sharp, it's tight, so Hevel will build up, it doesn't have good ventilation. Aval Shiach Darach, we have a long ditch where maybe air can get into it easier. Ema Basara, less Behevla. Maybe even if it's 10 deep, there's no Hevel, it has to be deeper. That's why that's the Shiach. We tell the Shiach, have a Shiach, Asaru the Isbei Hevla. If it's 10 Tachli by a Shiach, there it is Hevel. We should the cut because it's narrow. Abu Ma'ira, the Marava, a Ma'ira that has 4 equal sides, it's a square. Maybe it's better ventilated. Ema Basara less Behevla. That's why that's in Ma'ira. We tell the Ma'ira, have a Ma'ira Basara who the Isbei Hevla. We should the Metalla. That's because it has a roof over it. So once again, it stops the air from getting into it. Abu Charitin the Loy Metali. But ditches or other type of holes that don't have a cover, because it doesn't open up wider. It's not wider at the top than at the bottom. But needin that get wider as the walls go up, so it's very open. Maybe maybe even if it's 10 deep, there won't be hevel. There's hevel there as well. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll be mamshel tomorrow. Oh, gewaltig. Now I'm such a